Hi, I'm going to read to you from a story of mine called That Story Is Your Mother's. Rose, my great-uncle Edward's second wife, was 20 years his junior. She was my mother's age, which horrified the family. Nevertheless, late in the summer of 1964, not long after the wedding, Dad took my sisters and me over to Galiano Island to meet her, putting the boat in at Crescent Beach and then shooting over to Whalers Bay, where Aunt Rose and Uncle Edward lived in a ramshackle house on a spit. My Uncle Edward loved working with wood and took his small powerboat around to secluded beaches on Galiano and the neighboring islands and kept his eye out for interesting pieces of driftwood. Some of the limbs and branches were small enough to be managed by one fit but elderly retired dentist, but some required the aid of another person, and that person was usually Aunt Rose. In one corner of their workshop, Edward used his old dental tools and drills to delineate natural curves and lines or to encourage a face to emerge from the wood. In another, Rose sanded the wood smooth by hand with increasingly finer grades of sandpaper and then added coat upon coat of varnish. Some pieces became tables or lamps, others, after being turned on a lathe, egg cups and pencil holders. On Sundays, visitors to the island could visit the driftwood gift shop, situated in another corner of the workshop, and purchase a memento of their trip. After the water taxi landed on Salt Spring, I bought 2 bars of Cadbury's dark chocolate and hiked up the hill to surprise my great-aunt Rose in her new digs, as she called them. The senior's residence is only 100 yards from the trailer park where she'd lived until the spring, before she decided that at 89 years old she'd been too independent for too long and it was darn well time for someone else to look after her. When Rose opened the door of her apartment, she was surprised and pleased to see me, and I felt bad having to explain that I'd got lost and so I just had 40 minutes to visit before I caught the boat back to Galiano. "Better than nothing," she said, "and your timing is perfect. I was just finishing off a sock, and now it's done." She held up a burgundy sock with a blue toe and heel. Uncle Edward came home from World War I with the intention of following his older brother Clive into medicine, but he switched to dentistry after 2 years because he said he couldn't stand the bodies. When I asked Rose about it, she said, shaking her head, that he was a boy in the war, just 17, too young to go at all, and they put him to work dragging bodies and wounded soldiers off the battlefields. What he saw and what he heard were enough to damage a grown man, let alone a boy, she said. "You know, he never believed in God as long as I knew him, and I guess it's no wonder. He was so full of hate sometimes it was terrible. And he'd gone quite deaf from the shells bursting around him. It wasn't his ears alone that went deaf either. I thought sometimes his heart did too. In fact, I'm sure it was the war experience that altered any feelings of affection your uncle could have had. I tried to understand that. I did try, you know. He was only 79 when he died. We had 10 years together. His heart gave out." She took my hand and stroked the back of it. "In spite of his difficulties and afflictions," she said, "your uncle was a remarkable and fine man, and I will always be indebted to him. He did for me what most men would not. He went out of his way to help me, and I will always, always hold him near and dear right here in my heart." Then she stood up. "I'll make you a cup of tea," she said. "You know, it was quite stressful for me making a big move like this at my age. I suppose it was for all of us who moved here. Imagine, 40 old people who don't know each other moving into this brand new place all at the same time. Finding our way around, getting to sort out who you care to know and who not to bother with. When you get to my age, you don't want to waste any time on people who aren't worth the effort." After a walk through the building and the grounds, we make our way back to her apartment, our arms wrapped companionably around each other's waists. Like sisters, I think, only better. I'm struck by how strong she is, her arms, her back, her legs. She recites as we walk, "Never trouble trouble till trouble troubles you. You'll only double trouble and trouble others too." "It's hard work keeping your mind active, you know, dear," she says. "That's how I keep my marbles, reciting and doing sums in my head. Can you?" "No, I didn't think so." Outside her apartment door stands an old man with a cane who seems to be waiting for us. Though he lifts his head and gives us a smile and a bright hello, Rose ignores him. "Hello," I say, and Rose jabs me with her elbow. "Don't talk to him," she whispers. "Excuse us," she says, and pushes past him. When we're inside, she says, "Did you see that old fool? Know what he said to me the other day? He said, 'I have a perfectly good queen-size bed in my place.' Can you imagine? The nerve. And when I didn't answer, he said it again. Men, they're one mass of ego their whole life long." Rose slides her patio door wide open and shows me a path through the blackberries that's a shortcut into town. "I'll be picking these blackberries soon," she says, nodding at the banks of green, red, and dark purple berries ripening on either side of the path, their thorny fronds reaching out like blind things. "And making jam. I love blackberry jam." "And how long will you be on Galiano Island this year, dear?" "All summer, until Labor Day weekend. I'll try to come over again after my husband goes home. He has to go back to work." "Is that all right?" she says. "Your husband's going off like that?" "Oh, yes," I say. "We do it often. Either Philip's gone or I am. It's just the way our lives are." "Can you trust him?" "I can trust him." "You're lucky," she says. "I couldn't trust mine." "I don't know how you stood it, Rose." "I had to. That's how. Now you be careful going down, and don't look to those blackberries for support. Watch your step." She smiles that smile again before adding, "And your back. Don't ever forget to watch your back." Thank you.